That high-stakes meeting at the White House. High stakes because if a deal isn't reached, we could witness real-life consequences like our troops not getting paid, seniors not getting Social Security payments, the stock market could plunge, and millions of people could lose their jobs. That's why this meeting is high stakes. So President Biden is set to have a meeting with congressional leaders this afternoon at the White House to try and reach a deal on the debt ceiling. Even Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is urging Congress to act as soon as possible, warning that a default would create an unprecedented economic and financial storm.
The U.S. economy hangs in the balance. The livelihoods of millions of Americans do too. So there's no time to waste. Congress should address the debt limit as soon as possible.
Meanwhile, Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy slammed President Biden for heading to Japan tomorrow, telling our Rachel Scott there that the president shouldn't leave while the debt ceiling hangs in the balance.
When you only have 16 legislative days left and you're going to spend half of them overseas, I believe the American public wants to have an American president focused on American problems and solutions.
And is the work requirements on some federal aid programs a red line for you?
We don't have that much time left. We want to make sure we avoid a default, but they've got to get serious, and they haven't been serious about any of these negotiations.
Our Jay O'Brien joins us once again from Capitol Hill. So, Jay, the president does head to Japan, as we mentioned, tomorrow. Congress is getting ready for the break for Memorial Day. So can this deal get done if the president is on the other side of the world like his staff says he can?
Yeah, and the clock is ticking not just to the debt limit, of course, Kira, but also to that meeting this afternoon. And one of the biggest questions to watch for when you see the principals, which are the congressional leaders, the Speaker of the House Minority Leader, and both leadership of both parties in the Senate, as well as the president, the thing to watch for when they emerge from that meeting is how close are they to the potential of a deal? Do they emerge from that meeting saying that they have things that they agree on? Are there certain spending concessions and things of that nature that are points of agreement so we can gauge how close they are to a meeting? Kevin McCarthy telling Rachel, as you saw, and telling other reporters this morning, that he doesn't believe they're going to emerge from this meeting this morning, or this afternoon rather, with a deal. But the question is, how close do they get? Now, how the White House is responding to that criticism from McCarthy and others about the president's trip after, as we get so close to the deadline here and the debt ceiling, is that the president is the president no matter where he goes. But certainly this notion, if the debt ceiling isn't raised before he leaves, which is very unlikely, that is expected to be a cloud over his international trip as the White House, as the president, try to coordinate some of these negotiations potentially from abroad, Kira.
So McCarthy, of course, continuing to lay the blame on Biden for no deal. But look, both sides are being stubborn here.
That's exactly right. The Republicans, remember, think back to months ago when they first staked this claim. House Republicans said they would not vote to raise the debt ceiling without spending concessions from the administration. And at that same point, the White House and the president came out and said that the debt ceiling should not be a bargaining chip, that it should be raised without any strings attached. And largely, that is what both sides have continued to say publicly, although they have met now several times. And we know that White House staff and congressional staff have been behind closed doors over the last few days, going back to last week, trying to see if there are points of agreement, trying to see if they can hammer out a deal. The question becomes, where are they as of today? And do they emerge with perhaps an agreement on spending cuts or certain kinds of work requirements for federal aid, or the ability to claw back potentially unspent COVID money? You're seeing on your screen some of the key points of this deal. Also, permitting reform, which refers to domestic energy production, there on the bottom. If there is some agreement amidst one or all of these topics, that could signal improvement. The White House believes there has been improvement, but Speaker McCarthy saying as early as this morning, or as late as this morning rather, that he doesn't believe they're far enough along yet, Kira.
All right, well, you know, so far Republicans have been digging in, but we've seen these battles play out before, and they've always ended up raising the debt limit one way or another. So do you think this will be any different this time around?
And there are times when the debt limit, as you'll remember, is raised without anything attached to it. And then there are other times where you have an opposition Congress, or a Republican Congress, for instance, and a Democrat-controlled White House, where the debt ceiling is tied to spending concessions. Think back to 2011, for instance. That is when you have President Obama in the office, President Biden is the vice president, and House Republicans said they would not vote to raise the debt ceiling without spending concessions. And they did get spending cuts as a result of those negotiations. Now, those spending cuts eventually got ran over. They were voted to essentially be overturned, or at least those spending caps to be blown through, but they got a political win at the time. So the question now facing House Republicans is, do you go for the 2011 scenario where you do extract spending concessions out of the White House, or do you vote to raise the debt ceiling without any kinds of concessions? And certainly that is a very remote possibility. They want some concession from the president.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.